Yo, what's going on, boys? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to the Steve 2 video. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a build for the Arc Hunter that I think is going to be fantastic in Heresy. And one of the reasons is that pretty much everything that's in this build, or maybe not everything, but the majority of the stuff that's actually on this build, it is actually getting buffed. We have weapon buffs, we have class buffs, we have just new things that are also going to help this build out, and it's actually going to end up leading to this build being one of the best in Heresy. This build is all about being unkillable, having a ton of damage resistance, being able to jolt a bunch of things, and also being able to make a bunch of ionic traces so you can spam your abilities, including your super. So that's what this build is all about, and the only things that you need to make this build work is the Delicate Tomb fusion rifle, and also the Gift of Conviction exotic armor piece. As long as you have those two things, you're going to be able to make this build work. So if you guys enjoy these types of videos, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to the channel in case you guys haven't already, so you can always be notified whenever I post some more. So let's get into it, and first let's take a look at the exotics that were running on this build and how they help the build in general. So we're going to be starting this exotic off with the Delicate Tomb, and this is just the perfect time to actually use this fusion rifle. We're getting arc mods, we're getting fusion rifle mods, and this thing can take advantage of both of them. It is also really good with any sort of arc build, especially those that like to make ionic traces, since this thing can make ionic traces by itself and also even jolt targets, so that also has a lot of synergy with a lot of the arc mods. And on top of that, it's also getting some buffs next season, so it can make ionic traces a lot more effectively, and the exotic shot that it has, Tempest Cascade, is also going to be doing more damage next season, up from 30% to 100%. So essentially, you're just going to be doing double damage per shot. And the special shot is also not going to have a timer anymore, so you won't just lose it if the timer runs out. You basically have it till you actually use your fusion rifle again, which is also another nice quality of life change that's definitely going to help out this weapon. So this weapon is just going to have some really good synergy with the build, with all the jolting, as well as all those ionic traces you're going to be making. Now for our exotic piece of armor, we do have the Gift of Conviction. This is one of the few things that didn't get a buff or any change at all. This is pretty much just the same, but this one really didn't need it, and this thing is going to give us some crazy damage resistance. Whenever we activate our Ascension or Tempest Strike, it throws around bouncing explosives that jolt targets, and whenever you jolt any targets, we gain damage resistance. And the jolting doesn't just have to come from this exotic itself, it is jolting of any kind. So shooting them with our fusion rifle, hitting them with a grenade, anything that jolts will give us some of that damage resistance. And with this build, since jolting is like the main thing that we do, it is very easy to keep up that damage resistance, especially thanks to our fusion rifle. That thing just jolting pretty much any target that you run into, as long as you can make ionic traces, just makes it super easy to keep this up. And also our Tempest Strike as well as our Ascension also help out. Now for our subclass, we are going to be on just pure arc, so just regular arc, and for your super, you want to be on either Gathering Storm or Arc Staff. You can run either of those supers, you don't really have to have a specific super, so any of those two work. Now for our abilities, I recommend that you get on the Gambler's Dodge so we can get our melee back a lot faster, since we are going to be using our melee quite a lot. Now for your melee, you want to be on Combination Blows, not because there's a Combination Blows build, but just because it has the lower melee cooldown. We're not really going to use this as a regular melee, it's mostly just going to be used as a Tempest Strike melee. So you're never really going to use it normally, but we definitely want to have it used a lot more often. And for your grenade, I recommend that you go with the Flashbang Grenade. The blind is very useful, being able to stun champions is pretty useful, and it still does some pretty decent damage with a pretty lowish cooldown, so you can actually use it quite a lot. So I think this one is just kind of like the best arc grenade. I definitely recommend that you run this. Now moving on to the aspects, our first aspect is going to be Ascension, and Ascension actually got a couple of buffs. It's getting a third fragment slot, so you'll be able to add an extra fragment to your build. And it's also now going to be able to activate some of the Hunter dodge abilities, like Gambler's Dodge, Marksman Dodge, and Empowering Dodge. Meaning that if we do our Ascension next to some enemies, it's going to be able to like give us back our melee. This one is such a good change, because it means that it adds a lot more uptime on our Tempest Strike, used by using our Ascension. And constantly just keep jolting things, making ionic traces, and keeping that extra damage resistance pretty much all the time on us. Amplified, which is something that you get very easily through Ascension, is also getting some buffs, giving us now 15% damage resistance, and also making it harder for enemies to target us whenever we are amplified. So they're used less likely to hit us, and both of these changes are going to increase the survivability of pretty much any arc build. So I really like these changes that they ended up making to Amplified. Now for our second aspect, we have Tempest Strike, and Tempest Strike also got a couple of changes. It got a damage increase. Now it does 57% increased damage against PVE enemies, and that's all of the enemies. So it's gonna hit a lot harder, and now whenever you kill any jolted targets, you gain bolt charge, which is pretty much any target that you hit with Tempest Strike, since it jolts when it hits them. So now it's gonna be able to build the bolt charge, so you can add bolt charge to this build and make those big lightning explosions. So those big lightning strikes with bolt charge, just adding a bit more damage to the build. Now moving on to the fragments, the first one we have is going to be the Spark Discharge. Arc Weapon Final Blows have a chance to create some Ionic Traces. And this thing is actually going to get a whole other ability added to it. Whenever you pick up Ionic Traces, they will also give you Bolt Charge. And since we're going to be making lots of Ionic Traces, it just kind of helps us trigger that Bolt Charge a lot faster. And this is going to be a fantastic mod. I would not be surprised if you start to see this pretty much in every Arc build. After that, we're going to have the Spark of Ions. Whenever we defeat some jolted targets, it creates an Ionic Trace. Now, since jolting is the main thing that we do, this is just like the perfect mod for us to make more Ionic Traces, so we can get more Bolt Charge, and also so we can spam some more abilities. And this one's also getting another effect added to it. Whenever we defeat some targets with Bolt Charge, they will also make an Ionic Trace. So some of those Bolt Charge kills are essentially going to feed into some more Bolt Charge kills, so you can do more Bolt Charge. Are you guys tired of me saying Bolt Charge yet? After that, we're gonna have Spark of Resistance, and this is gonna add even more damage resistance to just all the damage resistance we already have, to make us tankier, so we can tank even more damage, since we're basically always gonna be up close and personal with the enemies. That's the thing with this build, you pretty much have to always be in the middle of the enemies, whether it's using your Tempest Strike, your Ascension, your Fusion Rifle, you always want to be up close, so the more damage resistance we have, the better, and this one kind of helps with that. And the final mod that we're running on this build for now is going to be the Spark of Beacons. While we amplify our Arc Special or Heavy Weapon Final Blows, create a Blinding Explosion. This is basically perfect for the build. Our main weapon is a special weapon, so we're always going to be able to take advantage of this. And if we also throw like an Arc LMG on our build, then this thing becomes unstoppable. You're basically going to be able to blind with every kill. And there actually doesn't seem to be a cooldown on this fragment, so every time that you get a kill, you refresh that blind, just basically blinding the opponents just over and over again, and it makes dealing with a bunch of enemies up close just a little bit easier, since if they're blinded, they can't really hurt you. Now the armor mods are not really changing with this episode, so you're not really going to see anything like groundbreaking here. It's just some pretty standard mods for an arc build. On the helmet, we have Harmonic Siphon, so we can make some orbs with our power weapons, or with our arc weapons, I'm sorry. And we also have Special Ammo Scout and Special Ammo Finder. Since our main weapon that we're going to be using is a special weapon, you definitely want to have the Finder. Now for the gauntlets, you want to have Harmonic Loader, Firepower, and also Impact Induction. So you can reduce the cooldown of your grenade whenever you hit a Tempest Strike, so you can make some orbs with those grenade kills, and so we can reload our arc weapons a little faster. Now if you have the Tomb's Catalyst, you probably don't need this, since it's going to be auto-reloading itself whenever you pick up Ionic Traces. But if you do not have the Catalyst done, then I definitely recommend the Harmonic Loader. Especially if you're pairing it up with like an arc machine gun, you definitely want the loader. For the chest piece, it's just the resistances. Nothing really special here. It's just the good old resistances. And these ones are going to change depending on the activity you do. For the boots, we're going to have Absolution, also Restoration, Recuperation. Pretty standard here. Whenever we pick up some orbs, we heal, and we also get our abilities back. And lastly, for the class item, we're going to have the double utility kickstart, so we can just use our class ability a lot more often with the Ascension. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just want to use Ascension as quickly as possible, so that's what the utility kickstart helps us with. And also because Ascension can't really use some of the other mods, so this is really like the only choice really. And with that, that's actually going to be the end of the build. Now, once we get some of those new mods, any of the arc mods are essentially going to improve this build. And the beautiful thing is that you don't really have to change anything. You can just keep the build like this and just insert the new mods and things will just work. Things like Dielectric, whenever you defeat some arc debuff targets, you get Bolt Charge. That is essentially just free Bolt Charge, because we're always going to be debuffing targets with our arc blind, meaning that all the Bolt Charge that we're already making just with the build right now is going to get supercharged once we get some of those arc mods next season. So this build is pretty much like complete the way it is right now, but it's just gonna get even more upgrades tomorrow, once we get the actual artifact. Now when it comes to playing with the build, you want to be essentially as aggressive as possible. It's a very aggressive arc build. You want to always be in the middle of the enemies, always throwing your grenades, using your Tempest Strike, using your Ascension. As soon as you get your abilities, you want to use them, especially because of how easily you get them back. And it's going to be even easier once the update hits tomorrow, giving your Tempest Strike even more uptime than it currently has right now in the game. But with that, that's going to be it, boys. Thank you for watching, thank you for stopping by. Let me know in the comments below, what are you guys going to be doing with those new arc mods? Do you already have a build in mind? Are you thinking of some builds? Let me know that in the comments below. I will definitely have to revisit this once all the mods are actually out, so I can actually show you with gameplay just how good this build actually is. So thank you all for stopping by, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care everyone, have a good rest of your day. Peace.